Hello, English learners. Welcome back to English Practice with Julia. I'm Julia, and I'll be your host today. If you're new here, I'm really happy you're watching. On this channel, we upload a fresh English learning video every single day to help you improve your English step by step, slowly, naturally, and with confidence. In today's episode, we're going to focus on something that many learners dream about, speaking English fluently. And the good news is this: speaking English fluently is absolutely possible for you. Yes, even if you sometimes feel shy, even if you make mistakes, and even if you feel that speaking English is difficult right now. Today, we're going to explore powerful ideas that can completely change the way you practice speaking English. Simple but effective habits that real learners use to become confident speakers. I will share practical techniques, daily life examples, and small exercises that you can practice with me during this lesson. So this will not be a passive lesson. This will be an active learning experience, which means you'll listen, you'll think, you'll repeat, and you'll practice expressing your own ideas in English. To make the most of this lesson, I recommend keeping a pen and paper near you, because from time to time, I will invite you to write something, reflect on your thoughts, or practice building sentences. And these small exercises will help your brain remember English much faster. Many learners believe that fluency is only for people who have a special talent for languages. But that's simply not true. Fluency is built through habits, through daily exposure, through small moments of courage when you decide to speak, even if your sentence is not perfect. And during this lesson, we're going to talk about 9 powerful ideas that can help you become a stronger and more confident English speaker. These ideas are not complicated, but when you understand them deeply and practice them regularly, they can completely transform the way you communicate in English. You'll learn how to build speaking confidence, how to practice even when you are alone, how to train your brain to think in English, how to express your ideas more clearly, and how to turn everyday situations into powerful speaking practice. And remember, fluency does not mean speaking without mistakes. Fluency means expressing your thoughts naturally, sharing your ideas, connecting with people, and feeling comfortable communicating in English. So if you've ever thought, I understand English, but I can't speak it well, or I know many words, but I don't know how to use them, then this lesson is exactly for you. And before we begin, if you enjoy calm, practical English lessons like this, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and press the bell icon so you don't miss our next lesson. It really helps the channel grow, and it helps you stay consistent with your English learning journey. All right, take a deep breath, relax your mind, grab your pen and paper, and let's start improving your English speaking skills together. When people first begin learning English, many of them focus heavily on grammar rules and vocabulary lists. And while these things are important, they are only one part of the journey. Speaking is a completely different skill. Speaking is active, dynamic, and emotional. Think about how children learn to speak their first language. They don't begin with grammar textbooks. They begin with listening, repeating, experimenting with words, and sometimes making funny mistakes. But those mistakes are part of the learning process. And the same idea applies to learning English. The more you use the language, the more natural it becomes. Let's start with a simple reflection exercise. Take a moment and think about this question. Why do you want to speak English fluently? Maybe you want to travel the world. Maybe you want better job opportunities. Maybe you want to study abroad. Or maybe you simply want to communicate with people from different cultures. Take a few seconds and try to say your answer in English, even if the sentence is simple. For example, you might say something like this. I want to speak English fluently because I want to travel and talk with people from different countries. Or you might say, I want to speak English better because it will help me in my career. Or maybe, I want to understand movies, books, and conversations in English without difficulty. These simple sentences are already part of your fluency journey because fluency grows every time you express your thoughts. Now let's try a small speaking exercise together. I will give you a sentence, and I want you to repeat it slowly after me. Imagine you are speaking with a friend. I am improving my English step by step. Take a moment and repeat it again. I am improving my English step by step. Very good. Now let's expand the idea. I am improving my English step by step, and I feel more confident every day. Repeat that sentence slowly. I am improving my English step by step, and I feel more confident every day. Excellent. What you just did is a very important speaking habit. You took a simple sentence, and then you expanded it. This is one of the secrets of fluent speakers. They build sentences gradually. They don't try to say everything perfectly at once. They start simple, and then they add more details. Let's try another small exercise. Imagine someone asks you this question. How is your English learning going? Think about how you would answer. You could say, my English is getting better. But you could also say something a little more natural. My English is getting better because I practice every day. Or maybe, I'm still learning, but I feel more comfortable speaking English now. Do you see the difference? Instead of giving a very short answer, you expand your idea. And this is exactly how natural conversation works. Fluent speakers do not speak in single words. They share thoughts, experiences, and feelings. So here is another small practice moment for you. Try to answer this question aloud. What do you usually do to practice English? Take a moment and try to answer in English. Maybe you say something like, I watch English videos and listen to podcasts. Or maybe, I practice speaking English with my friends. Or maybe, I try to think in English during the day. Every sentence you say is strengthening your ability to communicate. And here is something important to remember. Fluency grows through repetition. When you repeat useful sentences many times, your brain begins to recognize patterns, and those patterns help you speak more, and quickly and naturally. That's why during this lesson, we will continue practicing together, step by step. Now let's continue with another short speaking moment. Repeat this sentence after me, slowly and clearly. Speaking English fluently is possible for me. Take a breath and repeat it again. Speaking English fluently is possible for me. Very good. Now let's add a little more meaning to it. I believe speaking English fluently is possible for me if I practice every day. Repeat that sentence. I believe speaking English fluently is possible for me if I practice every day. Excellent work. Sometimes the biggest obstacle to fluency is not grammar. It is confidence. Many learners are afraid of making mistakes, so they stay silent. But silence prevents progress. Imagine learning to swim without ever entering the water. It would be impossible. Language works in the same way. You must enter the conversation, even if the water feels a little cold at first. And the beautiful thing is, every small conversation makes the next conversation easier. So during this lesson, I encourage you to speak along with me whenever possible. Repeat the sentences, try the exercises, and allow yourself to experiment with English, because every moment of practice is moving you closer to fluency. And today, we're going to continue exploring powerful ideas that can help you become a confident English speaker in everyday life. So stay with me, relax, keep your mind open, and let's continue improving your English together. Many English learners believe that speaking fluently is something that only happens after many years of study. But the truth is a little different. Fluency does not suddenly or appear one day. It grows slowly through small daily actions, small conversations, small moments when you decide to speak instead of staying silent. And when you understand this idea, learning English becomes much less stressful, because instead of chasing perfection, you begin to focus on progress. Think about the last time you tried to speak English with someone. Maybe you felt nervous. Maybe your mind suddenly became blank. Maybe you knew the words, but they didn't come out easily. This happens to almost every learner. And it doesn't mean you are bad at English. It simply means your brain is still learning how to organize thoughts in a new language. And just like any other skill, it becomes easier with practice. One powerful habit that fluent speakers develop is speaking in small moments during the day. They don't wait for a perfect situation. They create opportunities to use English. For example, imagine you wake up in the morning and you start describing your actions in English. You might quietly say to yourself, "I'm waking up now. I'm going to make some coffee. I need to check my messages. Then I'll start my work." These small sentences might seem simple, but they train your brain to build thoughts in English naturally. Let's try a short speaking exercise together. Imagine you are starting your day and describe your morning routine using English. You could say something like, "I usually wake up around 7 in the morning. I brush my teeth. Then I prepare breakfast. Sometimes I drink coffee while checking my phone." Take a moment and try saying a few sentences like this aloud. Speak slowly. And don't worry about mistakes. The goal is to keep your thoughts moving. You might notice something interesting while doing this. Exercise. When you speak slowly and calmly, your brain has more time to organize words. And this is an important secret of fluency. Fluent speakers are not always fast speakers. They are comfortable speakers. They give themselves time to think. And they focus on communicating their ideas clearly. Another helpful technique is expanding your sentences step by step. For example, instead of saying only, I work every day, you can slowly add more information. You might say, I work every day at a small office. Then you can expand again. I work every day at a small office where I help customers. This simple habit helps you build longer and more natural sentences. Let's practice that idea together. Imagine someone asks you a simple question like, what do you like to do in your free time? Instead of answering with only one short sentence, try building your answer gradually. You might begin with something simple like, I like watching movies. Then you can add more detail. I like watching movies because they help me relax. And finally, you can expand again. I like watching movies because they help me relax after a long day of work. Notice how your answer becomes richer and more natural. This is exactly how real conversations work. People rarely speak in short, robotic sentences. They share thoughts, feelings, and little stories. Now let's try another small practice moment. Imagine a friend asks you about your weekend. You could answer like this. My weekend was nice. I spent time with my family. We had dinner together and watched a movie. Take a moment and try describing your own weekend in English, even if the sentences are simple. Keep talking for a few seconds. This type of practice may feel strange at first, especially if you are speaking alone, but it is extremely powerful because it removes the pressure of conversation. You can experiment with words, try different expressions, and slowly build confidence. Confidence plays a very important role in speaking fluency. Many learners have enough vocabulary and grammar knowledge, but they hesitate because they are afraid of making mistakes. However, mistakes are not enemies of learning. Mistakes are teachers. Every time you say something imperfect, your brain receives feedback and gradually improves. Imagine learning to ride a bicycle. At the beginning, you may lose balance. You may fall. But each attempt teaches your body something new. Language learning follows the same pattern. The more you practice, the more stable your communication becomes. Let's try another speaking exercise. This time, we will practice expressing opinions. Imagine someone asks you this question. Why do you think learning English is important? Try answering with 2 or 3 sentences. For example, you might say, I think learning English is important because it helps people communicate internationally. It also gives more opportunities for travel and work. Now pause for a moment and try saying your own answer aloud. Speak slowly and focus on expressing your idea clearly. You may notice that sometimes you need a moment to find the right word. That is completely normal. Even native speakers pause while speaking. The important thing is to stay relaxed and keep the conversation moving. One helpful trick is using simple connecting phrases, expressions like and, because, so, and also. These small words help your ideas flow naturally. For example, instead of saying, I like English, it is useful, you can connect the ideas. I like English because it is useful for communication. Let's practice another example together. Imagine someone asks you, why are you learning English? You might say, I'm learning English because I want to communicate with people from different countries, And I also want to improve my career opportunities. Take a moment and try repeating a similar sentence aloud. When you practice speaking like this, you are training your brain to organize thoughts quickly, and this skill becomes stronger with repetition. Another powerful habit is listening carefully to natural English. When you listen regularly, your brain begins to absorb sentence patterns, pronunciation, and rhythm, and how this makes speaking easier because you already recognize how ideas are expressed. For example, imagine you hear a sentence like, "I'm trying to improve my English little by little." This pattern becomes familiar, and later, when you want to express a similar idea, your brain naturally remembers the structure. Now let's practice with that sentence. Repeat after me slowly. I'm trying to improve my English little by little. Say it again, but this time with a little more confidence. I'm trying to improve my English little by little. Very good. Now let's expand it. I'm trying to improve my English little by little by practicing every day. Repeat that sentence slowly. Excellent. This type of repetition helps your brain build speaking reflexes, which means you can produce sentences more easily in real conversations. Another helpful activity is describing what you see around you. This can be done anywhere, at home, on a bus, in a park. You simply observe your environment and describe it in English. For example, imagine you are sitting in a cafe. You might say, "The cafe is quiet. A few people are working on their laptops. The smell of coffee is strong, and soft music is playing in the background." By doing this, you practice vocabulary, sentence structure, and observation skills at the same time. Let's try a short imagination exercise. Picture the room where you are sitting right now and try describing it in English. Maybe you say, "I'm sitting at my desk, there is a window near me, and I can hear some noise outside." Take a few seconds and create 2 or 3 sentences describing your environment. These small exercises are powerful because they turn ordinary moments into learning opportunities. And when you begin to see English as something that lives inside your daily life, fluency becomes much more natural because English stops being only a subject and starts becoming a tool for expressing your thoughts. Another idea that helps learners speak more comfortably is focusing on meaning instead of perfection. Sometimes learners try to build the perfect grammatical sentence before speaking, but this can slow down communication. Instead, focus on expressing your message, even if the structure is not perfect. For example, imagine you want to say, "Yesterday, I went to the supermarket and bought some fruit." Even if you accidentally say, "Yesterday, I go to supermarket and buy fruit," the listener will still understand you, and communication continues. As you keep practicing, your grammar will naturally improve. But the most important step is allowing yourself to speak. So here is another small challenge for you. Try speaking about something you did yesterday. Maybe you went to school. Maybe you worked. Maybe you spent time with friends. Describe it in 2 or 3 sentences. You might say something like, "Yesterday, I worked most of the day. In the evening, I cooked dinner, and later I watched a movie to relax." Take a moment and create your own short description. This exercise trains an important skill: storytelling. And storytelling is a big part of natural conversation. People often share small stories about their day, their experiences, their plans. And when you practice telling these little stories, your speaking ability grows stronger. So remember this simple idea. Fluency is not built through one big action. It grows through many small moments of practice, small sentences, small conversations, small stories, repeated again and again. And as you continue practicing, those small moments slowly transform into confident communication. When people imagine a fluent English speaker, they often picture someone who speaks very fast, someone who never pauses, someone who uses complicated vocabulary in every sentence. But in reality, fluency is not about speed or complexity. Fluency is about comfort. It is about being able to express your thoughts naturally, even if your sentences are simple. Many confident English speakers actually use very simple language, but they speak with clarity and ease. They allow their ideas to flow, and they don't stop themselves every time they think about grammar. This is an important mindset shift for learners because when you stop chasing perfect sentences, you begin focusing on real communication. Let's imagine a small, everyday situation. You meet a friend after a few days, and they ask you, "How have you been?" This is a very common question in English, and there are many natural ways to answer it. You might say, "I've been good, just a little busy with work." Or you could say, "I've been doing well. I've been spending a lot of time studying English lately." Or maybe, "I've been okay. This week has been a bit tiring, but also productive." Do you notice something interesting about these answers? They are not complicated, but they sound natural because they include a little explanation. This is one of the keys to sounding more fluent, expanding your answers slightly instead of giving very short responses. Let's try a small practice moment together. I imagine someone asks you the same question. "How have you been lately?" Try answering aloud with 2 sentences. Maybe you say, "I've been doing well. I've been practicing my English and watching some interesting videos." Pause for a moment and try saying your own answer now. Speaking like this helps you train something very important, the ability to organize your thoughts quickly. And this ability grows stronger each time you practice expressing yourself. Another helpful habit for improving speaking skills is learning to describe feelings and emotions. Many conversations include emotions: happiness, stress, excitement, curiosity. And when you can express these emotions clearly, your communication becomes much richer. For example, imagine someone asks you about your day. You might say, "Today was a productive day. I finished some important work and I felt satisfied." Or maybe, "Today was a little stressful, but I managed to complete my tasks." Let's practice a similar sentence together. Repeat after me slowly. "Today was a good day because I learned something new." Say it again, but a little more naturally. "Today was a good day because I learned something new." Very nice. Now let's expand the sentence. "Today was a good day because I learned something new and practiced my English." Repeat that sentence aloud. This simple expansion technique is extremely powerful. It allows you to build longer sentences without feeling overwhelmed. You begin with a basic idea and then slowly add more information. Now imagine another everyday situation. You are talking with a colleague or a classmate, and they ask you, "What are your plans for the weekend?" You could our answer in many ways. For example, "I'm planning to relax this weekend, maybe watch a movie and spend some time reading." Or, "This weekend, I'm going to visit my family. We're planning to have dinner together." Or even, "I'm not completely sure yet, but I might go for a walk in the park and practice some English listening." Take a moment now and try describing your own weekend plans. Speak slowly and clearly. These small conversations are exactly what you will experience in real life. And by practicing them regularly, you make those situations feel familiar. Another powerful strategy for improving fluency is speaking about familiar topics that are part of your daily life. Because when the topic is familiar, your brain can focus more on language. For example, everyone has a daily routine. So talking about your routine is excellent speaking practice. You might say something like, "My mornings usually start quietly. I wake up, prepare breakfast, and then I spend a few minutes planning my day." Or, "In the evening, I usually relax by watching videos or listening to music. Sometimes I read a book before sleeping." Let's practice together. Repeat this sentence after me. "In the evening, I like to relax and think about the day." Repeat it once more, slowly and naturally. "In the evening, I like to relax and think about the day." Excellent. Now try creating your own sentence about your evening routine. Maybe you say, "In the evening, I like to study English for 30 minutes. Or, "In the evening, I usually talk with my family and relax." Take a moment and say your sentence aloud. Another interesting exercise is describing memories, because memories naturally encourage longer sentences. Imagine you are talking about a memorable experience, maybe a trip, a celebration, or a special day. You might say something like, "Last year, I visited a beautiful place near the mountains. The air was fresh, and the scenery was peaceful. It was one of the most relaxing trips I've ever had." When you describe memories like this, you practice using descriptive language, and your speaking becomes more expressive. Now let's try a short storytelling exercise. Think about something nice that happened recently. Maybe you met a friend, maybe you watched a good movie, maybe you learned something new. Try describing that moment in 2 or 3 sentences in English. For example, you might say, "Yesterday evening, I watched an interesting movie. The story was exciting and it made me think about many things." Pause for a moment and try telling your own short story. Exercises like this are powerful because they combine vocabulary, emotion, and personal experience. Another important element of fluent speaking is curiosity. When you are curious about people and ideas, conversations naturally become longer. Imagine you meet someone new. You might ask questions like, "What do you enjoy doing in your free time?" Or, "What kind of movies do you like?" Or, "Have you traveled anywhere interesting recently?" Asking questions like this not only keeps the conversation moving, It also gives you more opportunities to listen and learn new expressions. Let's practice one of these questions together. Repeat after me. What do you usually like to do in your free time? Say it again slowly. What do you usually like to do in your free time? Now, imagine someone answers you and you respond with curiosity. You might say, "That sounds interesting. How did you start doing that?" By asking follow-up questions, you create a natural flow of conversation, and this is something fluent speakers do very often. Another useful speaking habit is paraphrasing, which means expressing the same idea in a slightly different way. This skill helps you continue speaking even when you forget a specific word. For example, imagine you forget the word calculator. Instead of stopping completely, you could say, "The small device that helps you calculate numbers." This technique keeps communication moving, and it shows that fluency is not about knowing every word. It is about using the words you already know creatively. Let's try a quick imagination exercise. Imagine you want to describe a smartphone, but you pretend you don't know the word phone. You might say, "It's a small device that people use to call others, send messages, and access the internet." Do you see how communication still works, even without the exact word? This is a powerful skill for real conversations because even native speakers sometimes forget words, but they continue speaking by describing the idea differently. As you practice these habits, expanding answers, describing daily life, telling small stories, asking questions, and paraphrasing ideas, you will begin to notice something interesting. Your sentences will start flowing more naturally. And that moment, when your thoughts begin to connect easily with English words, is the moment when fluency truly begins to grow. So keep practicing, keep speaking, and most importantly, keep enjoying the process, because every sentence you say is another step toward confident English communication. One of the most powerful discoveries many English learners make is that fluency does not come from studying harder. It comes from practicing smarter. Sometimes learners spend years memorizing grammar rules or long vocabulary lists, but when they try to speak, the words still feel stuck in their minds. This happens because speaking is an active skill. And like any active skill, it improves through use, through repetition, and through real communication. Imagine learning to play a musical instrument. You could read books about music theory for months, but unless you actually play the instrument, your fingers will not learn the movements. Language works in a very similar way. Your brain needs practice turning thoughts into spoken sentences. And the more you practice, the more natural this process becomes. One helpful strategy is creating a daily English moment, a small period of time every day when you intentionally use English, even if it's only 10 or 15 minutes. This daily habit slowly trains your brain to treat English as part of your life, rather than something separate from it. For example, you might choose a quiet moment in the evening, sit comfortably, and talk about your day in English. You could say something like, "Today was a busy day. I spent most of the morning working. Then in the afternoon, I went outside for a short walk. The weather was nice and it helped me relax. This simple habit helps you organize events in English, and it improves your ability to tell stories, which is an important part of natural conversation. Let's try a small exercise together. Imagine you are telling someone about your morning today. You might say, "This morning I woke up a little earlier than usual. I prepared breakfast and checked some messages. After that, I started my work." Take a moment and try describing your own morning in 2 or 3 sentences. Speak slowly and focus on clarity rather than perfection. Another important idea for improving fluency is learning to think in English little by little. Many learners translate every sentence from their native language before speaking, and this can slow down communication. But when you practice forming thoughts directly in English, speaking becomes much easier. For example, instead of thinking in your native language and translating the idea, try thinking in simple English phrases. Imagine you are looking at the sky. You might think, "The sky looks beautiful today," or "It might rain later." These small mental sentences train your brain to operate directly in English. And over time, this reduces the need for translation. Let's practice a short thinking exercise. Look around your environment for a moment. Choose one object near you and try describing it silently in English. You might think something like, "This table is wooden. It looks strong, and it has a smooth surface." Take a few seconds and create your own mental description. This exercise might seem simple, but it gradually builds the habit of thinking in English, which is one of the most important steps toward fluency. Another powerful technique is practicing shadowing. Shadowing means listening to a sentence and repeating it shortly after, almost like an echo. This helps your brain learn natural rhythm and pronunciation. Let's try a small shadowing example together. Listen to the sentence and then repeat it aloud. "I enjoy learning English because it opens new opportunities." Now repeat the sentence again, but try to match the rhythm and tone. "I enjoy learning your English because it opens new opportunities." Very good. Now let's expand it slightly. "I enjoy learning English because it opens new opportunities and helps me connect with people around the world." Repeat that sentence slowly. This type of repetition trains your mouth and your brain to work together, and over time, speaking begins to feel more automatic. Another skill that fluent speakers develop is the ability to describe ideas even when they are unsure about the exact vocabulary. Instead of stopping completely, they explain the idea using simpler words. For example, imagine you want to describe a thermometer, but you don't remember the word. You might say, "It's a small tool that shows the temperature." Communication continues, and the listener still understands you. This skill removes a lot of pressure during conversation because you realize that forgetting one word does not stop the entire discussion. Let's try a small creativity exercise. Imagine you want to describe a bicycle without using the word bicycle. You might say, "It's a vehicle with 2 wheels. People use it to travel short distances and exercise." Take a moment and try describing another object around you in the same way. Exercises like this train your brain to become flexible with language, which is a key characteristic of fluent speakers. Another important habit is learning to express opinions. Opinions are a central part of everyday conversations. People often share thoughts about movies, books, food, work, and many other topics. For example, imagine someone asks you, "What do you think about learning languages?" You might answer, "I think learning languages is exciting because that helps people understand different cultures." Let's practice repeating that sentence. I think learning languages is exciting because it helps people understand different cultures. Now try creating your own opinion about English learning. Maybe you say, I think learning English is important because it connects people globally. Take a moment and speak your sentence aloud. When you practice expressing opinions, you strengthen your ability to participate in conversations. Because many discussions involve sharing personal perspectives. Another helpful exercise is imagining conversations. Even if you are alone, you can create a small dialogue in your mind. For example, imagine someone asks you, "How do you practice English?" You might answer, "I usually watch English videos and try to repeat the sentences." Then imagine the person. Zhao asks another question. "Do you enjoy learning English?" And you respond, "Yes, I enjoy it because it helps me grow and discover new ideas." By imagining these small dialogues, you prepare yourself for real conversations, and your brain becomes more comfortable with the flow of communication. Let's try a small imagined conversation now. Imagine someone asks you, "What motivates you to learn English?" Your answer could be something like, "I'm motivated to learn English because it helps me connect with people and explore new opportunities." Pause for a moment and try saying your own answer aloud. Exercises like this strengthen your speaking muscles, just like physical exercise strengthens your body. Another powerful idea is celebrating small progress. Sometimes learners become discouraged because they focus only on how far they've been. I still have to go. But progress is built through many small victories. For example, the first time you successfully explain an idea in English, even if the sentence is simple, that is progress. The first time you understand a full conversation, that is progress. The first time you speak confidently without translating every word, that is progress. Each of these moments represents growth, and recognizing them helps you stay motivated. Let's finish this section with a final speaking exercise. Repeat this sentence slowly and confidently. I am improving my English every day through practice and patience. Say it again, a little more naturally. I am improving my English every day through practice and patience. Excellent. Remember, fluency is not a distant dream. It is a journey that grows through daily effort, curiosity, and courage. And with every sentence you speak, you move one step closer to confident communication. As you continue your journey towards speaking English more fluently, it becomes important to understand something very encouraging. Your brain is already capable of learning languages. In fact, every human brain is naturally designed for language learning. The difference between someone who becomes fluent and someone who struggles often comes down to practice habits and mindset, not intelligence or talent. Many learners underestimate how powerful At first, it may not seem like much, but over weeks and months, those small moments of practice accumulate. And suddenly you realize that forming sentences feels easier. Understanding conversations becomes clearer, and speaking begins to feel more natural. One helpful way to build consistency is to connect English practice with daily activities. Instead of thinking of English as a separate subject that requires special time, try integrating it into moments that already exist in your day. For example, when you are cooking, you might describe your actions quietly in English. You could say, "I'm cutting vegetables now. The onions smell strong. I'm heating the pan and adding some oil." This simple activity transforms an ordinary moment into language practice, and it helps your brain associate English with real-life experiences. Let's try a short speaking exercise based on this idea. Imagine you are preparing a meal and try describing the process in English. You might say, "First, I wash the vegetables. Then I chop them into small pieces. After that, I cook them in a pan." Take a moment and say 2 or 3 sentences about cooking or preparing food. These types of practical descriptions improve your vocabulary while strengthening your ability to explain actions, which is a very useful communication skill. Another helpful strategy for improving speaking skills is learning to slow down your thinking. Many learners feel pressure to respond quickly during conversations, and this pressure can cause nervousness. But in reality, it is perfectly acceptable to pause for a moment before answering. Fluent speakers often use small expressions that give them time to think. Phrases such as, "Let me think about that for a second," or "That's a new, interesting question," or "I'm not completely sure, but I think." These expressions make conversations feel natural while giving your brain time to organize ideas. Let's practice one of these sentences together. Repeat after me slowly. "Let me think about that for a moment." Say it again. "Let me think about that for a moment." Or, now imagine someone asks you a difficult question. You could begin your answer by saying, "That's a good question. Let me think about that for a moment." This small habit reduces pressure and allows your thoughts to form calmly. Another useful speaking technique is describing your opinions about everyday topics. For example, people often talk about food, movies, technology, travel, and hobbies. Let's imagine someone asks you about your favorite type of movie. You might answer, "I really enjoy adventure movies because they are exciting and full of interesting stories." Or perhaps, "I prefer calm and thoughtful movies because they help me relax and reflect." Take a moment now and describe your favorite type of movie or TV show in 2 sentences. By practicing topics that are familiar and enjoyable, you make speaking practice more engaging. And when learning feels enjoyable, motivation becomes stronger. Another important part of speaking fluency is listening carefully to others. Listening provides examples of how ideas are structured in English, and these patterns slowly become part of your own speech. For instance, when you hear a sentence like, "I've been working on improving my English recently," Your brain absorbs that structure. And later, you might naturally say something similar, like, I've been spending more time practicing my English lately. Listening and speaking support each other. The more you listen, the more natural patterns you learn, and the easier speaking becomes. Let's practice repeating a natural sentence together. I've been practicing my English a little every day. Repeat it again slowly. I've been practicing my English a little every day. Now, try creating a similar sentence about your own learning. Maybe you say, I've been watching English videos to improve my listening. Say your sentence aloud. Another very effective speaking exercise is explaining something you know well. Everyone has topics they understand, maybe your work, a hobby, a sport, or a favorite activity. When you explain something you already understand, your brain can focus on language rather than trying to invent new ideas. For example, if you enjoy photography, you might explain, photography is interesting because it allows you to capture special moments. You can experiment with lighting and angles to create beautiful images. Or if you enjoy sports, you might say, I enjoy playing football because it keeps me active and helps me relax. Take a moment and explain one of your hobbies in English. Speak for a few seconds and describe why you enjoy it. This exercise improves both vocabulary and confidence because you are speaking about something meaningful to you. Another skill that helps learners sound more fluent is using simple transition phrases. These phrases connect ideas smoothly. Expressions such as, for example, in my opinion, on the other hand, and because of that. Let's practice one example together. Repeat after me. In my opinion, practicing every day is the best way to improve English. Say it again slowly. In my opinion, our practicing every day is the best way to improve English. These small phrases make speech sound more organized and natural. Now imagine you are discussing language learning with a friend. You might say, in my opinion, the best way to improve English is to use it in daily life. Try saying a similar sentence using the phrase, in my opinion. Another technique that helps fluency is describing future plans. Future topics appear frequently in conversations. People often talk about upcoming events, goals, and expectations. For example, you might say, next week I'm planning to spend more time practicing English conversation. Or, in the future, I hope to travel and communicate with people from different cultures. Take a moment and describe one of your personal goals in English, maybe related to learning, work, or travel. These small expressions train you to speak about time and plans, which are very common conversation topics. Another powerful habit is reviewing what you have learned at the end of each day. You might take a few minutes to reflect in English. You could say something like, today I practiced speaking English for 20 minutes. I learned a few new expressions and I feel more confident. Reflection helps your brain organize information and strengthens memory. Let's finish this section with a final practice sentence. Repeat after me slowly. I am becoming more confident every time I speak English. Say it again. I am becoming more confident every time I speak English. Excellent work. Remember, fluency grows step by step through patience, curiosity, and regular practice. And every sentence you speak helps your mind become more comfortable with English. As you continue building your English speaking skills, one very important realization slowly begins to appear. Fluency is not something that suddenly arrives one day. It develops gradually through many small conversations, small attempts, and small moments of courage. Every time you decide to speak instead of staying silent, you strengthen your ability to communicate. And this steady progress is what eventually leads to real confidence. Many learners feel that they must wait until their English is perfect before speaking. But this idea actually slows down learning. Language grows through use, not through waiting. The more you allow yourself to speak, the faster your brain learns to organize words naturally. Think about a simple everyday situation. Imagine you meet a colleague in the morning. They smile and ask, "How is your day going so far?" This is a very common question in English conversations, and your answer does not need to be complicated. You could simply say, "My day is going well. I started the morning with some work, and now I'm feeling productive." Notice how this answer is simple but expressive. It gives a little information and keeps the conversation flowing. Let's practice something similar together. Imagine someone asks you, "How is your day going today?" Try answering with 2 short sentences. You might say, "My day is going well. I've been working and practicing my English." Take a moment and say your own answer aloud. Another very helpful habit for building fluency is learning to describe experiences. Experiences are a natural part of conversation. People often share things they have done recently, places they visited, or things they learned. For example, imagine you recently watched an interesting documentary. You might say, "Yesterday, I watched a documentary about nature. It was very fascinating, and I learned many new things about wildlife." Or maybe you tried something new. You could say, "Last weekend, I tried cooking a new recipe. It was challenging at first, but the result was delicious." Take a moment and think about something you experienced recently, maybe something simple, and describe it in English using 2 or 3 sentences. Speaking about experiences helps you practice storytelling, and storytelling is one of the most natural forms of communication. Another idea that helps learners become more fluent is visualizing situations. When you imagine realistic conversations, your brain prepares itself for real interactions. For example, imagine you are traveling in another country and you enter a small cafe. The person behind the counter smiles and asks, "What would you like to order?" You might respond, "I'd like a cup of coffee, please, and maybe a small sandwich." Then the person asks, "Would you like anything else?" You reply, "No. Thank you. That's all." Simple dialogues like this appear everywhere in daily life, and practicing them helps you become comfortable with common expressions. Let's try a short practice exercise together. Repeat this sentence after me. "I'd like a cup of coffee, please." Say it again slowly. "I'd like a cup of coffee, please." Now try creating your own similar sentence, perhaps ordering tea or juice. These small exercises train your brain to react naturally during everyday conversations. Another helpful strategy for improving fluency is learning to ask follow-up questions. When conversations continue beyond a single answer, communication becomes more natural and engaging. For example, imagine someone tells you, "I watched a great movie last night." Boy, you might respond with curiosity. "That sounds interesting. What kind of movie was it?" Or, "Who was the main actor?" Questions like these keep conversations alive, and they also give you more opportunities to listen and learn new vocabulary. Let's practice repeating one of these questions. What kind of movie was it? Repeat it slowly. What kind of movie was it? Now imagine someone tells you they traveled recently. You could ask, "Where did you go?" Or, "How was the experience?" Take a moment and say one of these questions aloud. Another powerful exercise is describing people. Describing people helps you practice adjectives, personality traits, and physical descriptions. For example, imagine you are describing a friend. You might say, "My friend is very kind and supportive. She always encourages me to keep learning." Or, "My colleague is hardworking and creative. He often shares interesting ideas." Take a moment now and describe someone you know in 2 sentences. This exercise strengthens vocabulary and helps you communicate more clearly about relationships and personalities. Another useful speaking habit is explaining reasons. When you give reasons for your ideas, your speech becomes richer and more meaningful. For example, imagine someone asks you, "Why do you enjoy learning English?" You might say, "I enjoy learning English because it helps me connect with people from different cultures and understand new perspectives." Let's repeat that sentence together. I enjoy learning English because it helps me connect with people from different cultures. Say it again slowly. I enjoy learning English because it helps me connect with people from different cultures. Now try creating your own sentence explaining why you want to improve your English. Speaking about reasons helps you express deeper thoughts and feelings. Another important idea for fluency is learning to relax during conversations. Sometimes learners feel nervous because they worry about making mistakes. But conversations are not exams. They are simply exchanges of ideas. When you allow yourself to relax, your words come more naturally, and communication becomes easier. Imagine talking with a supportive friend, someone who listens patiently. In that environment, you feel comfortable expressing yourself, and that comfort allows your brain to focus on meaning rather than fear. This relaxed mindset is extremely helpful for language learning. Let's try another short speaking exercise. Repeat after me. I am learning English step by step, and I am proud of my progress. Say it again with confidence. I am learning English step by step, and I am proud of my progress. Very good. Another creative activity that strengthens fluency is describing future dreams. Dreams and goals are powerful conversation topics, and they allow you to speak with emotion and enthusiasm. For example, you might say, one of my dreams is to travel and communicate with people from many different countries. Or, in the future, I hope to use English in my career and meet interesting people. Take a moment and describe one of your dreams in English, even if the sentence is simple. These expressions help you practice talking about the future while sharing something meaningful. As you continue practicing exercises like these, describing experiences, imagining conversations, asking questions, and expressing opinions, you will begin to notice that your speaking ability becomes stronger. Your sentences become longer, and your confidence grows. Fluency is built through exactly these types of everyday moments. Moments where you allow your thoughts to flow through English without fear, without pressure, just communication. And with each practice session, each spoken sentence, and each small conversation, you are moving closer to the goal of speaking English naturally and confidently. As your English speaking ability continues to grow, you may begin to notice an interesting change in the way you think about language. At the beginning of the learning journey, speaking often feels slow and uncertain. You search for words, you pause frequently, and sometimes you feel unsure about how to continue your sentence. But with regular practice, something very encouraging starts to happen. Your thoughts begin to move more smoothly in English, and sentences start forming more naturally in your mind. This change does not happen overnight, but it appears little by little. And every small practice session contributes to this transformation. That is why consistency is far more important than intensity. Practicing for a short time every day is usually more effective than practicing for many hours only once in a while. One helpful way to build this daily habit is by turning ordinary moments into speaking opportunities. For example, imagine you are walking somewhere, maybe to work, to school, or simply outside for some fresh air. During that walk, now you can quietly describe what you see around you in English. You might say, "The weather feels pleasant today. The sky is clear and the sunlight is warm. I can see people walking and talking in the street." These small descriptions help you practice vocabulary related to the environment, and they train your brain to connect language with real experiences. Let's try a similar exercise together. Imagine you are standing near a window and looking outside. You might describe the scene like this. "I can see trees moving gently in the wind. A few cars are passing by, and the air looks calm and peaceful." Take a moment now and imagine what you see around you. Then describe it in 2 or 3 sentences in English. This type of practice helps you develop observation skills while strengthening your ability to form sentences naturally. Another powerful habit for improving fluency is learning to express preferences. Preferences appear in everyday conversations. People often talk about what they like, what they dislike, and what they prefer in different situations. For example, imagine someone asks you, "Do you prefer studying in the morning or in the evening?" You might answer, "I usually prefer studying in the evening because the environment is quieter and I can concentrate better." Let's repeat a similar sentence together. "I prefer practicing English in the evening because it helps me relax." Say it again slowly. "I prefer practicing English in the evening because it helps me relax." Now try creating your own sentence about when you prefer to practice English. Talking about preferences allows you to explain your habits and routines, which are common topics in she conversations. Another useful speaking skill is comparing ideas. Comparisons help you explain differences between things. For example, you might say, learning English through conversation is often more effective than only memorizing grammar rules. Or, watching English videos can sometimes be easier than reading long texts. Take a moment and try making a simple comparison, perhaps between two activities you enjoy. Comparisons encourage you to use more descriptive language and connect ideas logically. Another important habit for fluency is reflecting on your learning process. Reflection helps you understand what methods work best for you, and it keeps your motivation strong. For example, you might say, recently I realized that speaking practice helps me remember vocabulary better than just reading words. Or, I noticed that listening to English regularly helps me understand pronunciation more clearly. Let's practice a reflection sentence together. I have noticed that practicing every day makes my English stronger. Repeat it slowly. I have noticed that practicing every day makes my English stronger. 2. Reflection sentences like this help you talk about your personal learning journey, which can be a meaningful conversation topic. Another powerful exercise is imagining future situations where you might use English. Visualization prepares your brain for real communication. Imagine you are traveling abroad and someone asks you for directions. You might respond, "Yes, I can help you. The station is 2 streets ahead," or "then you turn left." Or imagine someone asks about your hobbies. You might say, "In my free time, I enjoy reading and learning new things." Practicing these imagined situations builds confidence because your brain begins to recognize familiar conversation patterns. Let's try a small practice sentence. Repeat after me. In my free time, I enjoy learning new things. Say it again. In my free time, I enjoy learning new things. Now expand the sentence slightly. In my free time, I enjoy learning new things and improving my English. Repeat that sentence aloud. Another skill that strengthens speaking ability is explaining simple processes. Explaining steps helps organize thoughts logically. For example, imagine you are explaining how you prepare your morning coffee. You might say, "First, I heat the water. Then I add coffee to the cup. After that, I pour the hot water and stir it slowly." Take a moment and try explaining a simple process. Perhaps how you start your day or how you prepare a meal. This type of explanation improves both clarity and structure in your speech. Another idea that helps fluency is practicing gratitude. Expressing gratitude is common in many conversations. For example, you might say, "I'm grateful for the opportunity to learn English because it allows me to connect with people around the world." Let's repeat a similar sentence together. I'm grateful for every opportunity to practice English. Say it again slowly. I'm grateful for every opportunity to practice English. Expressing gratitude not only strengthens vocabulary, it also creates a positive mindset toward learning. Another useful activity is describing goals step by step. Goals give your learning direction and motivation. You might say, My goal is to become more confident in English conversations, so I practice speaking a little every day. Or, one of my goals is to understand English movies without subtitles. Take a moment and describe one of your personal learning goals in English. Goals help you stay focused and remind you why you started learning the language. As you continue practicing these small exercises, describing surroundings, expressing preferences, making comparisons, explaining processes, and sharing goals, you will gradually notice that English feels less like a foreign language and more like a natural tool for communication. Your sentences will begin to flow more easily. Your thoughts will organize themselves faster, and your confidence will grow with each conversation. Fluency is not one built through a single breakthrough moment. It is built through thousands of small sentences spoken over time, and every sentence you practice is another step forward in your journey toward confident English communication. As your speaking confidence grows, another important ability begins to develop: the ability to continue a conversation naturally. Many learners can answer a question with one short sentence, but fluent communication usually involves expanding ideas, sharing details, and connecting thoughts smoothly. This is what makes conversations feel comfortable and engaging. For example, imagine someone asks you a simple question like, "What did you do yesterday?" A very short answer might be, "I worked," but a more natural answer could be, "Yesterday I worked most of the day, and in the evening I relaxed by watching a movie." Notice how adding a little extra detail makes the sentence sound more natural, and it gives the other person something to respond to. Let's practice this idea together. Imagine someone asks you, "What did you do this morning?" You could answer like this: "This morning I woke up early. I prepared breakfast, and then I spent some time practicing English." Take a moment now and describe your own morning in 2 or 3 sentences. Speak slowly and clearly. Expanding ideas like this is one of the habits that fluent speakers develop naturally. Instead of stopping after one sentence, they continue sharing small pieces of information. Another powerful way to improve speaking skills is learning to describe problems and solutions. This type of language appears frequently in real conversations. People often talk about challenges and how they solved them. For example, you might say, "At first, I found English pronunciation difficult, but I improved by listening carefully and repeating sentences." Or, "Sometimes I feel nervous speaking English, but practicing regularly helps me feel more confident." Let's practice repeating a similar sentence. "At first, learning English felt difficult, but practice helped me improve." Say it again slowly. "At first, learning English felt difficult, but practice helped me improve." Now try creating your own sentence describing a challenge you faced while learning English and how you are improving. Talking about challenges helps you explain personal experiences, and it also shows progress in your learning journey. Another useful habit for fluent speaking is learning to express curiosity. Curiosity keeps conversations active and interesting. Imagine you are talking with someone about travel. They might say, "I visited a beautiful beach last year." Instead of ending the conversation with a short response, you could show curiosity by asking, That sounds amazing. Where was the beach? Or, what did you enjoy most about that trip? Questions like these encourage deeper conversations and give you more opportunities to speak and listen. Let's practice repeating one of these questions. What did you enjoy most about that trip? Repeat it slowly. What did you enjoy most about that trip? Now imagine someone tells you they started learning a new skill. You might ask, how did you begin learning that? Take a moment and say this question aloud. Another effective exercise is describing places. Describing places helps develop your vocabulary and improves your ability to paint a picture with words. For example, imagine describing a park you visited. You might say, the park was peaceful and full of green trees. People were walking quietly and enjoying the fresh air. Or imagine describing a busy city street. The street was lively and full of energy. Cars were moving quickly and people were talking everywhere. Take a moment and describe a place you like. Maybe a park, a cafe, or a quiet room. Speak in 2 or 3 sentences. This type of description strengthens your ability to communicate vivid ideas. Another habit that supports fluency is summarizing information. Summarizing means explaining the main idea of something you read, watched, or experienced. For example, after watching a short video, you might say, the video explained how regular practice helps language learners improve their fluency. Or after reading an article, you might say, the article talked about the importance of curiosity and daily learning habits. Let's practice a simple summary sentence together. The main idea is that daily practice leads to improvement. Repeat that sentence slowly. The main idea is that daily practice leads to improvement. Summarizing information strengthens comprehension and speaking ability at the same time. Another useful speaking habit is expressing agreement and disagreement politely. These expressions are common in discussions and conversations. For example, if someone shares an idea you agree with, you might say, I agree with you. Practicing regularly really makes a difference. If you have a slightly different opinion, you might say, I understand your point, but I think conversation practice is even more important. Let's repeat an agreement sentence together. I agree with you. Regular practice is very important. Say it again slowly. I agree with you. Regular practice is very important. Now try creating your own sentence agreeing with an idea about learning English. Learning to express agreement and disagreement politely helps conversations flow smoothly and respectfully. Another helpful exercise is imagining teaching something in English when you explain an idea to someone else. Your brain organizes language in a clear and logical way. For example, imagine you are explaining to a friend how to improve English speaking skills. You might say, one helpful method is practicing every day. Even small conversations can improve confidence. Take a moment and imagine you are giving advice to someone who wants to learn English. Say 2 sentences of advice aloud. This exercise strengthens both communication skills and confidence. Another important skill is expressing encouragement. Encouraging words appear frequently in supportive conversations. For example, you might say, keep practicing. You are making great progress. Or, don't worry about mistakes. They are part of the learning process. Let's repeat a supportive sentence together. Keep practicing and you will become more confident. Say it again slowly. Keep practicing and you will become more confident. Encouraging expressions are useful not only for others, but also for yourself. Positive self-talk helps maintain motivation. As you practice these speaking habits, expanding ideas, describing experiences, asking curious questions, summarizing information, and expressing encouragement, you gradually develop the rhythm of natural conversation. Your mind becomes more flexible with language. Your sentences become longer and clearer, and your confidence grows step by step. Fluency is not a mysterious ability that only a few people possess. It is a skill that develops through patient practice and real communication, and with every conversation, every sentence, and every small effort, you move closer to speaking English comfortably and naturally. As your journey toward fluent English continues, it becomes helpful to focus on another very important speaking skill: the ability to explain your thoughts clearly. Communication is not only about knowing words, it is also about organizing ideas in a way that other people can easily understand. When you practice explaining things in simple and logical sentences, your speaking becomes much stronger and more confident. For example, imagine someone asks you a question like, "Why do you enjoy learning English?" You could give a very short answer, such as, "Because it is useful." But a clearer answer might be, "I enjoy learning English because it allows me to communicate with people from different countries and discover new ideas." Notice how the second answer provides more explanation and meaning. Let's practice a similar sentence together. Repeat slowly after me. I enjoy learning in English because it helps me connect with people around the world. Say it again, calmly and clearly. I enjoy learning English because it helps me connect with people around the world. Now try creating your own explanation about why learning English is important to you. Speak slowly and allow your thoughts to develop naturally. Another useful speaking habit is describing improvements. When you talk about progress, you reinforce your confidence and motivation. For example, you might say, "When I started learning English, speaking felt very difficult, but now I can express my thoughts more easily." Or, "At first, I understood only simple sentences, but now I can follow longer conversations." Let's repeat a similar sentence together. At the beginning, learning English was challenging, but practice helped me improve. Say it again slowly. At the beginning, learning English was challenging, but practice helped me improve. Talking about progress reminds you that improvement is always happening, even if it feels slow at times. Another powerful speaking exercise is describing routines in more detail. Routines are familiar topics, and they help build natural sentence flow. For example, imagine describing your evening routine. You might say, "In the evening, I usually relax after work. Sometimes I read a book or watch a video in English. And before going to sleep, I like to reflect on what I learned during the day." Take a moment now and describe your own evening routine in English. Try speaking for 2 or 3 sentences. Practicing routines regularly helps your brain become comfortable with everyday vocabulary. Another technique that strengthens fluency is learning to express possibilities. Conversations often include ideas about what might happen in the future. For example, you might say, "Tomorrow I might spend some time practicing English speaking." Or, "Later today I might meet a friend and talk about our plans." Let's repeat a similar sentence together. Later today, I might practice speaking English for a few minutes. Say it again slowly. Later today, I might practice speaking English for a few minutes. Now try creating your own sentence using the word might. Speaking about possibilities makes conversations feel more natural and flexible. Another helpful exercise is describing what you are learning at the moment. People often talk about what they are currently studying or improving. For example, you might say, "Recently, I have been focusing on improving my English speaking skills." Or, "Lately, I have been practicing listening and repeating." English sentences. Bria. Let's repeat a similar sentence together. Recently, I have been practicing English a little every day. Bria. Say it again calmly. Recently, I have been practicing English a little every day. Talking about current learning activities helps you share your personal progress with others. Another very useful skill for fluency is giving examples. Examples make explanations clearer and easier to understand. For instance, you might say, "There are many ways to practice English. For example, watching videos, listening to podcasts, or speaking with friends." Let's practice repeating that idea. There are many ways to practice English. For example, speaking and listening every day. Repeat it slowly. There are many ways to practice English. For example, speaking and listening every day. Now try creating your own sentence using the phrase "for example." Giving examples strengthens your ability to explain ideas in conversations. Another interesting exercise is imagining advice for new learners. When you give advice, you organize ideas clearly and speak with purpose. For example, imagine someone asks you how to start learning English. You might say, "My advice is to practice a little every day and not be afraid of making mistakes." Or, "I recommend listening to English often and repeating sentences to improve pronunciation." Take a moment and imagine giving advice to a beginner learner. Say 2 sentences of advice in English. This type of exercise strengthens both fluency and clarity. Another useful habit is describing emotions related to learning. Emotions help express deeper ideas. For example, you might say, "Sometimes learning English feels challenging. But it also feels exciting when I understand new things." Mao. Or, "I feel proud when I can speak English more confidently than before." Let's repeat a similar sentence together. "I feel happy when I notice my English improving." Now, say it again slowly. "I feel happy when I notice my English improving." Yeah. Expressing emotions makes conversations more personal and meaningful. Another important skill for fluent speaking is connecting ideas smoothly. Connecting words like the word "because." These small connectors help build longer and clearer sentences. As you continue practicing these habits, explaining ideas, describing routines, sharing progress, giving examples, and expressing emotions. You will notice that speaking becomes easier. Your thoughts will begin to organize themselves more naturally in English, and the fear of speaking will slowly fade away. Remember, every fluent speaker once started with simple sentences, and through patience and practice, those sentences grew into confident communication. So continue speaking, continue practicing, and continue believing in your progress, because each sentence you say brings you closer to speaking English fluently and comfortably. As you continue practicing English, speaking regularly, another important ability begins to develop: the ability to keep conversations flowing naturally. This means you can move from one idea to another without feeling stuck. Many learners worry about finding the perfect word or the perfect sentence, but fluent communication is usually much simpler. It is about expressing ideas clearly and continuing the conversation step by step. One helpful habit for maintaining conversation flow is sharing small details about your experiences. Instead of giving very short answers, try adding one or two extra pieces of information. This creates a more natural rhythm in communication. For example, imagine someone asks you a simple question like, "How was your weekend?" A short answer might be, "It was good." But a more natural answer could be, "My weekend was good. I spent some time relaxing and also practiced my English for a while." This small expansion makes your speech sound more natural and interesting. Let's try a short speaking exercise together. Imagine someone asks you the same question. "How was your weekend?" You might answer like this: "My weekend was relaxing. I spent some time at home and watched a few interesting videos." Take a moment now and create your own answer aloud. Adding simple details like this helps you develop conversational fluency. Another useful technique is describing your unlearning journey. People often enjoy talking about personal growth and experiences. For example, you might say, "When I first started learning English, I felt nervous speaking, but with practice, I became more comfortable expressing my ideas." Or, "At the beginning, I understood only simple conversations, but now I can follow longer discussions." Let's repeat a similar sentence together. "At first, speaking English felt difficult, but regular practice helped me improve." Say it again slowly. "At first, speaking English felt difficult, but regular practice helped me improve." Now try creating your own sentence about how your English has improved. Talking about progress strengthens your confidence and reinforces positive habits. Another helpful exercise is imagining everyday conversations. These imagined dialogues prepare you for real interactions. For example, imagine you are meeting someone for the first time. They ask, "What do you enjoy doing in your free time?" You might respond, "In my free time, I enjoy reading, watching movies, and practicing English." Then the conversation continues. The person might ask, "What kind of movies do you like?" And you might say, "I enjoy adventure movies because they are exciting and full of interesting stories." Take a moment now and imagine a similar conversation. Try speaking both the question and the answer aloud. Practicing dialogues like this trains your brain to respond naturally in real situations. Another skill that improves speaking fluency is describing opinions clearly. Conversations often include personal views and ideas. For example, you might say, "In my opinion, learning languages is one of the most valuable skills a person can develop." Or, "I believe practicing a little every day is the most effective way to improve English." Let's repeat a similar sentence together. In my opinion, and daily practice is the key to improving English. Say it again slowly. In my opinion, daily practice is the key to improving English. Now try expressing your own opinion about language learning. Expressing opinions makes conversations more engaging and meaningful. Another important ability for fluent speaking is describing goals and dreams. People often talk about their future hopes and ambitions. For example, you might say, "One of my goals is to travel and communicate with people from different cultures." Or, "In the future, I would like to use English in my career and connect with international communities." Take a moment now and describe one of your personal goals in English. Talking about dreams and ambitions helps you practice future expressions while sharing something meaningful. Another helpful habit is summarizing information you hear or read. Summarizing helps organize your thoughts clearly. For instance, or after watching a short video about language learning, you might say, "The video explained that speaking regularly helps learners build confidence and fluency." Or after reading an article, you might say, "The article emphasized the importance of daily practice and patience." Let's repeat a similar summary sentence together. The main idea is that consistent practice leads to fluency. Say it again slowly. The main idea is that consistent practice leads to fluency. Jaws. Summarizing information strengthens both comprehension and speaking skills. Another useful speaking habit is describing what motivates you. Motivation is an important topic in many conversations. For example, you might say, "Learning English motivates me because it allows me to communicate with people around the world." Or, "I feel motivated when I notice my progress." 9. And understand more conversations. Let's repeat a similar sentence together. "I feel motivated when I see my English improving." Say it again slowly. "I feel motivated when I see my English improving." Talking about motivation reinforces positive learning habits. Another interesting exercise is imagining giving a short presentation about English learning. Explaining an idea clearly strengthens fluency. For example, you might say, "Speaking English fluently is possible for anyone who practices regularly. Small daily efforts gradually build strong communication skills." Take a moment and imagine explaining this idea in your own words. Speak for 2 or 3 sentences. This type of exercise helps you organize ideas clearly and confidently. Another powerful speaking habit is expressing encouragement. Encouraging words help maintain hackers' motivation in conversations. For example, you might say, "Don't worry about mistakes. Every mistake is a step toward improvement." Or, "Keep practicing every day. Your English will become stronger with time." Let's repeat a supportive sentence together. Keep practicing and believe in your progress. Say it again slowly. Keep practicing and believe in your progress. Encouraging expressions are powerful because they remind you that learning is a journey. As you continue practicing all of these speaking habits, expanding answers, describing experiences, sharing opinions, explaining ideas, and encouraging progress, you will gradually notice that English begins to feel more natural. Your sentences will flow more easily. Your thoughts will organize themselves more quickly, and your confidence will grow step by step. Fluency is not built through perfection. It is built through consistent communication, through patience, curiosity, and the willingness to keep speaking. And with every sentence you practice, you are moving closer to the moment when speaking English feels comfortable, natural, and enjoyable. As you continue strengthening your English speaking ability, you may begin to notice that conversations feel less intimidating than before. Situations that once made you nervous may now feel more manageable. This change happens because your brain is becoming familiar with the rhythm of English communication, and familiarity naturally reduces fear. Many learners believe that fluent speakers never feel uncertain, but even experienced speakers sometimes pause or search for words. The difference is that they continue speaking calmly. They trust their ability to communicate even when sentences are not perfect. One useful habit for building this confidence is practicing short explanations about simple topics. Explanations help you organize your thoughts clearly and keep conversations moving forward. For example, imagine someone asks you a question like, "Why is learning English important today?" I might respond, "Learning English is important because it helps people communicate globally. It also opens opportunities for education, travel, and work." Notice how this explanation uses simple words but expresses a clear idea. Let's practice repeating a similar sentence together. Learning English is important because it helps people connect across cultures. Say it again slowly. Learning English is important because it helps people connect across cultures. Now try creating your own explanation about why English is useful in your life. Speak slowly and clearly. Another helpful speaking exercise is describing something you recently learned. This encourages reflection and strengthens vocabulary. For example, you might say, "Recently, I learned that practicing speaking regularly helps improve fluency faster than only studying grammar." Or, "Today, I learned a new expression that helps me explain my opinions more clearly." Take a moment now and describe something you learned recently, even if the sentence is simple. Talking about learning experiences helps reinforce knowledge and builds confidence in communication. Another useful skill for fluent conversation is describing situations step by step. This helps listeners understand events clearly. For example, imagine explaining how you started learning English. You might say, "At first, I began by learning basic vocabulary. Then I started listening to simple English conversations. Gradually, I practiced speaking and became more confident." Let's repeat a similar sentence together. "First, I started with simple sentences. Then I practiced speaking every day." Say it again slowly. "First, I started with simple sentences. Then I practiced speaking every day." Now try explaining a small process from your own life, perhaps how you start your morning or how you prepare for studying. Explaining steps strengthens logical thinking and speaking clarity. Another powerful habit for improving fluency is describing changes over time. This helps you talk about progress and experiences naturally. For example, you might say, "Over time, my English speaking skills have improved because I practice regularly." Or, "Little by little, I became more comfortable speaking English with others." Let's repeat a similar sentence together. Little by little, my English is becoming more natural. Say it again calmly. Little by little, my English is becoming more natural. Talking about gradual improvement reminds you that progress happens step by step. Another effective speaking exercise is discussing interests and hobbies. Hobbies are common conversation topics and help build vocabulary. For example, you might say, "In my free time, I enjoy listening to music and learning new things." Or, "I like reading books because they help me relax and expand my knowledge." Take a moment now and describe one of your hobbies in 2 or 3 sentences. Speaking about interests makes practice more enjoyable and personal. Another important habit is explaining reasons for your preferences. When you explain why, your speech becomes more meaningful. For example, you might say, "I enjoy learning English because it allows me to understand different cultures and ideas." Or, "I prefer watching English videos because they help me learn natural expressions." Let's repeat a similar sentence together. "I like practicing our English because it helps me become more confident." Say it again slowly. "I like practicing English because it helps me become more confident." Now try creating your own sentence explaining why you enjoy learning English. Another helpful skill is describing expectations for the future. People often talk about plans and hopes. For example, you might say, "In the future, I hope to speak English confidently with people from many countries." Or, "I plan to continue practicing English so I can communicate more effectively." Take a moment now and describe one of your future goals in English. Talking about the future helps you practice expressing ambition and motivation. Another speaking exercise that builds fluency is explaining advice. Advice is a natural part of conversations, especially when people share learning experiences. For example, you might say, "My advice for English learners is to practice speaking every day and not worry about mistakes." Or, "I recommend listening to English regularly and repeating sentences aloud." Let's repeat a similar sentence together. "My advice is to practice English a little every day." Say it again slowly. "My advice is to practice English a little every day." Now imagine giving advice to a new English learner. Say 2 sentences aloud. Giving advice strengthens your ability to communicate ideas clearly and confidently. Another useful speaking habit is reflecting on what motivates you. Motivation plays an important role in language learning. For example, you might say, "I feel motivated when I realize that my English is improving step by step." Or, "Seeing my progress encourages me to continue practicing." Let's repeat a similar sentence together. "I feel motivated when I see my English improving." Say it again slowly. I feel motivated when I see my English improving. Talking about motivation reinforces positive learning habits. Another valuable exercise is summarizing your daily learning experience. At the end of the day, you might say, "Today I practiced speaking English and learned a few new expressions. It was a productive learning day." Or, "Today I listened to English conversations and tried to repeat the sentences clearly." Take a moment now and imagine summarizing your learning experience today. Say 2 sentences aloud. Summarizing daily learning helps organize your thoughts and reinforces progress. As you continue practicing these speaking habits, explaining ideas, describing experiences, sharing opinions, and reflecting on progress, you will notice that communication becomes more comfortable. Your sentences will begin to flow more smoothly. Your confidence will grow, and your ability to express ideas will become stronger. Remember, speaking English fluently is not about perfection. It is about communication, about sharing thoughts and connecting with others. Every sentence you speak, every idea you express, and every moment of practice moves you closer to confident English communication. So continue practicing patiently, continue exploring the language with curiosity, and continue believing in your ability to improve, because fluency grows step by step, and every step matters. As you move further along your journey towards speaking English fluently, it becomes helpful to focus on one more powerful idea. Communication is not about sounding perfect. It is about being understood and expressing your ideas clearly. Many learners wait for the moment when their grammar is perfect or their vocabulary is advanced. But fluent speakers know that communication grows through practice, not perfection. When you allow yourself to speak freely, even with small mistakes, and something important happens. Your brain begins to build connections between thoughts and language, and those connections become stronger each time you speak. Think about a simple conversation you might have with a friend. They might ask you a question like, "What are you doing these days?" You could answer in a simple but natural way. For example, "These days, I am focusing on improving my English speaking skills. I try to practice a little every day." Notice how the sentence is clear and natural, even though the vocabulary is simple. Let's practice repeating a similar sentence together. "These days, I am focusing on improving my English." Say it again slowly. "These days, I am focusing on improving my English." Now try expanding this sentence slightly. "These days, I am focusing on improving my English by practicing every day." Take a moment and repeat it aloud. Exercises like this help you develop the habit of expanding ideas step by step. Another useful speaking habit is describing daily challenges and how you deal with them. Conversations often include discussions about problems and solutions. For example, you might say, "Sometimes I feel nervous when speaking English, but I remind myself that practice helps me improve." Or, "When I don't know a word, I try to describe the idea using other words." Let's repeat a similar sentence together. "Sometimes speaking English feels challenging, but practice makes it easier." Say it again slowly. "Sometimes speaking English feels challenging, but practice makes it easier." Now try describing a small challenge you have experienced while learning English and how you are working to improve. Talking about challenges helps you explain your experiences and encourages reflection. Another helpful skill for fluent communication is sharing personal stories. Stories make conversations interesting and memorable. For example, you might say, "One day I tried speaking English with a new friend. At first I felt nervous, but after a few minutes, the conversation became easier and more enjoyable." Or, "I remember the first time I understood an entire English conversation. It made me feel very proud and motivated." Take a moment and think about a small moment from your English learning journey. Try describing it in 2 or 3 sentences. Storytelling strengthens fluency because it encourages longer and more natural sentences. Another useful habit is expressing encouragement and positivity. Positive expressions help create supportive conversations. For example, you might say, "Learning a language takes time, but every step brings progress." Or, "Even small improvements are worth celebrating." Let's repeat a similar sentence together. "Every small step helps me become a better English speaker." Say it again slowly. "Every small step helps me become a better English speaker." Positive self-talk is extremely helpful in language learning because it keeps motivation strong. Another speaking exercise that improves fluency is explaining your learning methods. When you talk about how you practice English, you strengthen both vocabulary and communication skills. For example, you might say, "I improve my English by listening to conversations and repeating the sentences aloud." Or, "I try to practice speaking every day, even if it is only for a few minutes." Take a moment now and describe one method you use to practice English. Speak for 2 sentences. Explaining learning methods helps you reflect on what works best for you. Another useful skill is describing the benefits of learning English. Conversations often include discussions about advantages and opportunities. For example, you might say, "Learning English allows people to communicate internationally and explore different cultures." Or, "English helps people access information and connect with global communities." Let's repeat a similar sentence together. Learning English opens many opportunities for communication and learning. Say it again slowly. Learning English opens many opportunities for communication and learning. Now try explaining one benefit of learning English that is important to you. Another helpful speaking habit is describing the feeling of progress. Recognizing improvement builds confidence and motivation. For example, you might say, "When I notice that I can understand conversations more easily, I feel encouraged to continue practicing." Or, "Every time I speak English with confidence, I feel proud of my progress." Take a moment and say a sentence describing how it feels when you improve your English. Talking about progress reminds you that your efforts are meaningful. Another important skill for fluency is explaining what you plan to do next in your learning journey. This helps you talk about future goals. For example, you might say, "Next, I want to focus on improving my pronunciation and speaking confidence." Or, "I plan to continue practicing English every day so I can become more fluent." Let's repeat a similar sentence together. I will continue practicing English because I want to become fluent. You say it again slowly. I will continue practicing English because I want to become fluent. Now try describing one goal you have for your English learning. Another useful exercise is summarizing your progress in a few sentences. This helps organize your thoughts clearly. For example, you might say, during my learning journey, I realized that practice and patience are the keys to improvement. Or, step by step, my confidence has grown and speaking English feels more natural. Take a moment and summarize your English learning journey in 2 sentences. This type of reflection strengthens both fluency and awareness. As you continue practicing these habits, sharing experiences, explaining ideas, expressing motivation, and reflecting on progress, your ability to communicate will keep growing. Fluency develops gradually through thousands of small moments of communication. Each sentence you speak strengthens your confidence and improves your ability to express ideas clearly. Remember, speaking English fluently is possible for anyone who practices and consistently and believes in their progress. Every conversation, every practice session, and every sentence you say moves you closer to the goal of confident communication. As your English speaking journey continues, there is one final idea that is very important to remember. Fluency grows when English becomes a natural part of your daily life, not something that only exists inside a lesson or a textbook. When English becomes something you think about, speak about, and interact with regularly, your mind begins to treat it as a living language rather than just a subject to study. Many learners notice that the moment English starts appearing naturally in their daily routine is the moment their confidence begins to grow faster. This can happen in simple ways. For example, when you start thinking about your plans in English, or when you describe something you see around you without translating, or when you repeat an English phrase you heard earlier in the day. Imagine waking up in the morning and quietly describing your plans for the day. You might say, "Today I want to practice my English for a few minutes and learn something new." Or later in the day, you might reflect on your progress and say, "I feel happy because I practiced speaking today." These small moments may seem simple, but they slowly train your brain to build thoughts in English more naturally. Let's try a small speaking exercise together. Imagine describing your learning journey in a few sentences. You might say, "Learning English has been an interesting journey for me. At first, it felt challenging, but with practice, I became more confident." Or take a moment and try saying something similar about your own experience. Talking about your journey helps reinforce the idea that progress is always happening. Another powerful habit for maintaining fluency is continuing to use English even in small situations. For example, when you hear a new word, try using it in a sentence. When you learn a new expression, repeat it a few times during the day. These small repetitions help your brain remember language patterns naturally. For instance, if you learn a sentence like, "Practice makes progress," you can repeat it throughout the day. Let's repeat it together now. Practice makes progress. Say it again slowly. Practice makes progress. Short expressions like this are powerful because they remind you of the learning process. Another important speaking exercise is describing what you appreciate about learning English. Appreciation strengthens motivation and encourages positive thinking. For example, you might say, I appreciate the opportunity to learn English because it allows me to communicate with people from different cultures. Or, learning English gives me access to new knowledge and ideas. Take a moment now and say one sentence about what you appreciate in your English learning journey. Expressing appreciation keeps your motivation strong and reminds you why you began learning the language. Another useful practice activity is explaining what you have discovered during your learning process. Discoveries help you understand how progress happens. For example, you might say, one important discovery I made is that practicing speaking regularly helps build confidence faster. Or, I realized that listening and repeating sentences improves pronunciation. Let's repeat a similar sentence together. I discovered that daily practice makes learning easier. Say it again slowly. I discovered that daily practice makes learning easier. Talking about discoveries helps organize your learning experience into meaningful insights. Another helpful habit is describing the positive changes you notice in yourself. When you speak about improvement, your brain recognizes progress and builds confidence. For example, you might say, now I feel more comfortable expressing my ideas in English. Or, I notice that I can understand conversations more clearly than before. Take a moment and say a sentence about a positive change you have noticed in your English ability. Recognizing progress helps maintain motivation and encourages continued practice. Another powerful exercise is imagining future conversations where you use English confidently. Visualization prepares your mind for real communication. For example, you might imagine meeting someone new and introducing yourself confidently. You could say, hello, and my name is Julia. I enjoy learning English and connecting with people from different cultures. Or you might imagine sharing your experiences. I have been practicing English regularly, and it has helped me become more confident in conversations. Take a moment and imagine yourself speaking English confidently in a future situation. Describe that moment in 2 sentences. Visualization builds confidence because your brain begins to see communication as something natural and achievable. Another speaking exercise is summarizing the most important lesson from your learning journey. Summarizing helps organize ideas clearly. For example, you might say, the most important lesson I learned is that consistency is the key to fluency. Or, I learned that speaking regularly helps build confidence and natural communication. Let's repeat a similar sentence together. The most important lesson is to keep practicing and stay patient. Say it again slowly. The most important lesson is to keep practicing and stay patient. Another powerful idea is recognizing that language learning is a long-term journey. Every new word, every conversation, and every practice session adds another step forward. Progress may feel slow at times, but each effort contributes to your growth. When you look back at where you started, you will see how much progress you have already made. And that progress will remind you that fluency is not a distant dream. It is something that grows through daily effort and persistence. Let's finish with one final speaking exercise together. Repeat this sentence slowly and confidently. I am becoming more fluent every time I practice English. Say it again, calmly and confidently. I am becoming more fluent every time I practice English. And now expand the idea slightly. I am becoming more fluent every time I practice English. Odd, because practice builds confidence and clarity. Repeat that sentence aloud. Every sentence you practice strengthens your ability to communicate. Every conversation builds confidence, and every small effort brings you closer to fluent and natural English speaking. Thank you so much for spending this time practicing English with me today. I truly hope this lesson helped you feel more confident and more motivated to continue improving your English speaking skills. Remember, fluency is not something that appears overnight. It grows slowly through practice, patience, and the courage to keep speaking, even when sentences are not perfect. Every time you listen, repeat, and express your ideas in English, your brain becomes stronger and more comfortable with the language. And over time, those small moments of practice turn into real confidence. So keep speaking. Keep exploring new words and expressions. And most importantly, keep believing in your progress. If you enjoyed practicing English in this lesson, make sure to subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our next English practice video. We share new lessons regularly to help you improve your listening, speaking, and fluency step by step. Thank you again for learning with me today. Keep practicing, stay curious, and I will see you in the next English lesson.